Hi guys, welcome to our gross anatomy lecture. So today we're going to talk about the shoulder joint, the shoulder joint, which is also called the glenohumeral joint. So it's a joint that involves articulation between the head of the humerus, which is 1/3 of a sphere, and the glenoid cavity. So the glenoid cavity is going to be lined by a fibrocartilaginous rim called the glenoid labrum. And the head of the humerus is going to be lined by a hyaline cartilage. So these two are going to articulate. Take note of this. The glenohumeral joint, it sacrifices its stability, right, for movement. So it is less stable. If it is to be compared with the hip joint is going to be more stable than the glenohumeral joint. So as you can actually see, this is going to be a socket, this is going to be a ball. So this is a synovial ball and socket joint. This joint is going to be surrounded by capsule that is going to attach the lateral rim of your glenoid labrum medially to the anatomical neck of the humerus. So the glenohumeral joint is going to be reinforced by what we call rotator cuff muscles, as we're going to see. And because of these rotator cuff muscles, it's actually going to be deficient inferiorly. Let's take a look at the capsule. So the capsule said medially it attaches the rim of the glenoid cavity laterally to the anatomical neck of the humerus. This capsule is going to be reinforced by these rotator cuff muscles, but inferiorly it's going to be deficient. So it's going to be thin and lax to facilitate all the movement of the glenohumeral joint. Right, so this is a good diagram to illustrate the capsule of the glenohumeral joint. You can actually see extending from the rim of the glenoid cavity to the anatomical neck of the humerus. The capsule is lax and thin. Within the capsule, we are going to have your synovial membrane, which lines the articular surfaces of your capsule. And take note of this. Remember, the bicep brachii muscle is going to have two heads, a long head and a short head. A long head is going to be within the glenohumeral joint. And the synovial membrane is actually going to form a tubular sheath that surrounds your your long head of your bicep. And then anteriorly, it's going to extend as your subscapularis bassa. Your subscapularis bassa. So a question can say true or false. The subscapularis bassa communicates with the synovial membrane or with the glenohumeral joint cavity. That is true. So that's the synovial membrane, that's the capsule. Let's take a look at the ligament that reinforces the glenohumeral joint. Right, so you're going to have what called a glenohumeral ligament. So there are three of them. You're going to have a superior glenohumeral ligament, which will be extending from the glenoid cavity, rim of the glenoid cavity, to the humerus. So it's termed glenohumeral ligament. So it's going to be a 3-week branded ligament. This being a superior glenohumeral ligament, your middle glenohumeral ligament, and your inferior glenohumeral ligament. Apart from this, you're also going to have a transverse humeral ligament that converts your bicipital groove into a foramen for the long head of the bicep brachii. You're also going to have a ligament extending from the base of your coracoid process to the humerus. That is your coracohumeral ligament. That actually reinforces the superior aspect of the glenohumeral joint. Good. And then we have an important accessory ligament called a coracoacromial ligament. This one, it actually extends from the acromion to the coracoid process. Let's take a look. Right here is your coracoacromial ligament. It's an accessory ligament, which is actually very important in stabilizing the superior aspect of the glenohumeral joint. Let's take a look at some nerve supply and blood supply. So the nerve supply is going to come from the axillary nerve and the suprascapular nerve. As for the blood supply, it's going to come from the suprascapular nerve and some branches of your axillary artery. So there are some important bursa that actually cushion tendons around the glenohumeral joint. So we have this one that we said it's a subtendinous bursa of the subscapularis, which communicates with the synovial cavity of the glenohumeral joint. And then we also have an important bursa which is called a subacromial bursa or a subdeltoid bursa, which actually protects the inflammation of your supraspinatus against your acromion. Good. So, what reinforces your glenohumeral joint? Let's take a look. Right, let's take a look at muscles that reinforces the glenohumeral joint. So, these muscles, they are going to reinforce your anterior, superior, and posterior, leaving the inferior aspect of the glenohumeral joint deficient and a potential weak space for dislocation. Right. So remember, you have your lesser tuberosity. So these muscles are called your rotator cuff muscles, given by the mnemonic SITS. So you're going to have the first S for the supraspinatus attaching to the upper portion of a greater tuberosity, infraspinatus, your posterior portion of a greater tuberosity, teres minor, your inferior portion of your greater tuberosity. And then anteriorly, you're going to have your subscapularis muscle, which will attach to your lesser tuberosity, also forming a part of your rotator cuff muscles. Let's take a look at another diagram again. Right, so you can actually use your hand to show the attachment of the rotator cuff muscles. So this is going to be the attachment of your subscapularis muscle, supraspinatus muscle, infraspinatus muscle, teres minor muscle. So the stability of the glenohumeral joint is mainly due to the rotator cuff muscles. Right. Let's take a look at the infraspinatus muscle. So the infraspinatus muscle is actually prone to inflammation. So the inflammation of the supraspinatus muscle is due to the friction of this muscle against the acromion. If there is weakness in the subacromion bursa. So this condition is actually called subacromial bursitis. Good. Right. Let's take a look at the actions involved within the glenohumeral joint. Right, because of its less stability, it is going to have a lot of actions. We're going to have flexion, extension, abduction, adduction, right, medial rotation, and lateral rotation. So from this diagram, we are looking at the anterior view. We are going to have flexion, right, of the arm from the following muscles. So flexion is going to come from the anterior portion of your deltoid muscle, the pectoralis major muscle, the bicep, which is a weak flexor, and the coracobrachialis, which is actually a powerful flexor. As for extension, extension is going to be done by the posterior fibers of your dentate muscle, your latissimus dorsi, and your teres major muscle. What about for adduction? Adduction, moving away from the body. So adduction is going to be done by the following muscles. The first 15 degrees of abduction is going to be done by your supraspinatus muscle. From 15 degrees to 90 degrees is going to be done by the mid fibers of your deltoid muscle. And then above 90 degrees, we are going to have now the action of your serratus anterior and your trapezius muscle. What about adduction? Adduction is going to be facilitated by the following muscles. You're going to have your pectoralis major muscle, your latissimus dorsi muscle, your teres major muscle, and your teres minor muscle, as well as your coracobrachialis muscle. It's actually a weak adductor of the arm. What about medial rotation? So medial rotation is going to be facilitated by the following muscles. Definitely, we're going to have your subscapularis muscle, which attaches to your lesser tuberosity, your teres major, together with your latissimus dorsi muscle, and the anterior fibers of your deltoid muscle. Good. What about your lateral rotation? Lateral rotation is going to be facilitated by the muscles coming from the posterior of your axial skeleton, your latissimus dorsi, your infraspinatus, your teres minor, and your posterior portion of your deltoid muscle. So we have spoke of extension, flexion, adduction, abduction, medial rotation, lateral rotation. So the combination of all these muscles, all these actions, is called circumduction. So the glenohumeral joint is going to be involved in circumduction. Good. Let's take a look at some clinical correlates regarding the glenohumeral joint. Right, so you can actually have anterior dislocation and posterior dislocation of the glenohumeral joint. So anterior dislocation is due to sudden violence applied to the humerus, right? So that is going to lead it mainly occurs when the arm is going to be laterally rotated, right, inferiorly. So if the arm is extended and laterally rotated inferiorly, you're going to have anterior dislocation. And then if the arm is going to be medially rotated inferiorly, you're going to have posterior dislocation. Right. So posterior dislocation actually damage the axillary nerve. Both posterior and anterior dislocation, they'll actually damage the axillary nerve. which will lead to loss of muscle or atrophy of the deltoid. So thank you so much, guys. This is everything I have for you today for the glenohumeral joint. Take care.